in the den of iniquity. Vicinity no pretty, calamity fi hit we any moment. What's a pity? Tomorrow never certain. What dwells behind the curtain? The face of evil lurking with that shifty eyes averting. It's not a steady bubble that either pop or topple. Many will fall and stumble. Let the dozers gather rubble. From LA to Colorado, Guinea to Burkina Faso. Cannons will breach the towers and the troops will storm the castle. Hey, I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. So run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. I say, run, run, come, make we get it. Because the peace that is bestowed upon the meek is overrated. Lord, run, run, come, make we get it. Calling all your daughters and your sons, we come forget it. With the rubble steady rising, and hearts are compromising. Convictions here are stifling, making evil appetizing. The fists are steady forming, and countenance is falling. Defenses are withdrawing, possibilities are falling. In these your circumstances, evil will make advances. Pick up your sword and lances, and be sure to take your stances. Victory is never promised, the battle is upon us. Gather the brave and honest, and the righteous in your corners.
Welcome to another episode of Case Closed, 4 p.m. Eastern every Sunday. Okay, go ahead and click that like button, click the subscribe button and the notification bell. Today we're talking about SCOTUS, yes, the Supreme Court of the United States, the justices and the decisions that they make. Recently, they've come down with 3 that have been of note, that are noteworthy. Overturning Roe v. Wade, and an upholding of the right to bear arms with regards to states like New York and California. And this has to do with open carry. So we're going to be talking about things that surround these issues and the Supreme Court in general, where it lies with regards to our political and, shall we say, first of all, wait, hold on a second there. I think we got the kosher clinician in the building, right? We
Yes.
Changer. We got Dr. Thunder in the building. All right. How's everybody doing?
What's going on, guys?
Doing good.
Excellent.
Doing all right.
Well, let's start by kind of putting our cards on the table here, just by talking in general about the Supreme Court. What do I mean by that? I mean, where does the Supreme Court rank for you in terms of do you have pet peeves that reside with the judiciary as far as the decisions that have to be made? That's where it's at. Or do you focus more, let's say, the legislative aspects of things, or maybe you don't focus on the federal government, whatever it may be? And what do you have any particular judicial philosophy? I can start by answering the question, right? Again, just broad notions of this Supreme Court deal, right? I've always preferred the courts in terms of like paying attention to it because it's the most removed theoretically from like direct democracy, right? So it's the most aristocratic in its bearing, and I, in terms of judicial philosophy, would prefer that things stay away from the courts. So I like when the courts remove things, kick it back to, let's say, the shall we say, legislative side of things, or let's say the state, for example, and say, well, we have a particular purview that we deal with, and outside of this, we don't take on cases. But so that'd be my initial bias, let's say, to start with. But kosher clinician, like where do you stand with regards to the United States Supreme Court? Is it something that you pay attention to over time? Any pet issues that you have with regards to them, or and all that, if you will?
Well, there are no issues that I have per se. Shout out to Dr. Thunder and Ike, and I just want to join you guys for a few minutes. But there's no issue I have per se. But I will say, Ike, that there's a such thing called judicial expediency, where the states need to get involved. I mean, not the states, but the federal branch, because I think we're living in a time where the populations are at crisis, where many women are using deletion as a form of birth control. And because of that, the liberal states that are giving these women the power to do that, they're not giving those same sad men the power to say, I want my child, I want to keep my child. You know, men go through a catharsis when they can't have any say-so in how their baby is being handled and how their rights as a man is being handled. Because Many will bellow the sentiment, my body, my choice, but many men will argue that that baby is just as much as their child is as that woman. That baby is not their body, that baby is inside their body. Therefore, those men need to have equal say before that child is deleted. We talk about equality, but we tend to minimize the equality and the fairness of man. So I would say it's judicial expediency at the federal level, because right now the black population is decreasing as well as the white. And many men are realizing, many people are realizing, listen, at the rate that we're going now, who's going to pay the Social Security for some of the older people in the future?
Yep.
I see. And I know you say you're going to be here for only a few minutes. So I want to just kind of ask you a kind of a follow-up question here.
Yes,
With regards to, you mentioned this aspect, population, whether it be for political power or, shall we say, for the payment, the people who are going to bear the burden of an aging population, let's say.
Right.
Do you think that the outcomes will actually be changed in this regard, in the sense that one could argue that, the people who are not going to have babies are not going to all of a sudden start having babies, maybe a few babies in the margins here and there, but things are, this is not the 60s. People can figure out a way, and things have already the laws have already kind of congealed in the different states in the ways in which they're going to be, and people already know what they are, and birth control is pretty available, so it's not going to change anything. What do you have to say about that?
Wow. So you're saying that I guess if you could paraphrase it again for me, that because of the laws, and because I guess the laws of the 60s were archaic, that people should have more say so in their decision making. That's what you're saying?
I'm saying that perhaps the change in the laws is not going to do anything to the population. That people are not going to all of a sudden start having more babies because of birth control and other ways, and they're just going to go around. In other words, circumventing the law. Now, with regards to this specific thing about population is what I'm talking about, right? So, sure, Roe v. Wade is no longer the law of the land, but are we going to start seeing a population increase as a result of that?
That's an excellent question. Ike. I would say to those that are irresponsible, perhaps you might start seeing an increase, because there's still a segment of the population that are having babies with reckless men. And because they're having babies with those reckless men, they might not have sanctuary cities that would be, the safeguard to help them, carry that baby, or more or less, take care of that child. So it's hard to say if people are going to stop having babies or have more babies just because the law has been changed. I think what's going to happen mostly now, to the wise women, they're going to be a lot more wiser and be more careful, hopefully, in their decision making. But to the reckless, they will continue to be reckless, and they'll suffer the recompense of their error, in my opinion.
All right. So, game changer. Again, the question on the table is just general thoughts and any kind of biases or cards you want to put on the table with regards to you and the Supreme Court in general. Game changer.
No, I don't have any direct biases between myself and the Supreme Court. In fact, it's as of the three branches of government, it's really the one I respect the most, and it's for the reason that you stated a moment ago, and that is it's the one that's least linked to democracy, where the people don't really vote in its officials. Now, it's directly linked, granted, because the executive branch chooses it. And that's selected by the people. Nevertheless, that changes every 4 years. Also, something I respect about that particular branch is that it's a lifetime chair, meaning that they don't just work to meet their 4-year interest. A person in the other branches could make decisions that are in the country's temporary best interest, but not in its long-term best interest, and not really care because they got elected. So I do respect that aspect of it. Now, what's going on now and what's being stated or what's being done, and why there's pushback, because as you said, I don't really think that it would really do much. It will do something, but I don't think it'll do much to the existing birth rate. or the population decline that America has. But I think that the bigger issue here, and the reason why people are protesting these issues, is because it's rolling back certain liberties that people have become accustomed to. America prides itself on freedom, and unfortunately, we define freedom as the ability to do whatever we want. And this is the American government for the first time in a very long time saying that this is something that you want to do, but we will not let you do it under certain circumstances and in certain states. I think that the people who are protesting and marching are just shocked that America, is actually standing up to its citizenry.
Now, Ramil, I want to ask you something here with regards to what Game Changer said about the seeming objectivity of the court, right? And why he prefers the court to certain other aspects of the government. What are your thoughts with regards to that, and also with the court in general? Any particular biases, or shall we say pet cases that you may have that you're waiting on the court to either change or do something about? General thoughts about the court there, Ramil the Radical.
Yeah, so I think that this is one of the greatest Supreme Court teams ever. That's how I look at it. They ruled against that mandate, that jab mandate, and they've preserved a lot of freedom. So that's why I rock with them, especially Clarence Thomas. However, I do think, with this ruling right here, first of all, I didn't really do much. I think everybody's crying over nothing. I mean, if you want to get an abortion, you can still go to another state. These corporations, they're going to pay for trips and vacations, just like we said on the last time, so that they can get abortions. So I think, nothing's really going to change. I think everybody's crying for no reason. But aside from that, I think this is one of the greatest Supreme Court justice teams ever.
Okay, so that's well put. You kind of, I guess, we know where you stand. You're probably a fan of the late Anthony Scalia too. If he was around, I'll be like the MVP or the all-time. Anyways,
I think
whatever.
Clarence Thomas is the all-time.
Okay, yeah. Well, he's and mostly dissenting all the time with his but having written a lot of pretty good dissents. But Dr. Thunder.
Hey, real quick, Ike, before you do that, let's do this. Let's put Ramil should be where you are. You should be in the middle, and then I can be where Game Changer is. And then also your camera's a little bit blurry. Okay. So switch me in Game Changer now. So anyhow, this is interesting because I'm an originalist. There's these different sort of viewpoints on the Constitution. There's this sort of living document approach to ruling, and then there is the originalist, and there's several originalists now on the court, and I think that's what Ramil is celebrating. That's what I'm celebrating. Roe v. Wade should have never been the law of the land. All these folks claiming that their constitutional rights are being eviscerated don't understand that Roe v. Wade was never constitutional in the first place. But then they'll take a look at stuff like this attempted infringement of people's gun rights in New York State. They'll claim that somehow it's hypocrisy. I heard what's her name, Pelosi, suggest that it's hypocrisy because they're claiming that the court can strike down something locally in New York State, but on the other hand, Roe v. Wade that they're able to take something away that is federal, as if we're at odds here. Nothing is at odds. The Second Amendment is actually in the Constitution. Abortion rights are not in the Constitution, never have been. So that's all of that stuff is hogwash. The other thing that needs to be said is there's a huge thing, and it can be it's been overshadowed by these other two huge court cases, and that is schools of choice. Now there's been a precedent made where people are allowed to send their kids to any kind of school they want to with their federal dollars.
Can I ask you a question real quick? So
go ahead.
You don't think that they went a little too far by reversing the role? Because what about the Constitution where it says you should be securing your own persons from searches and seizures? Would that apply to that?
No, because we're not talking about infringing on your rights. So say if you're a pregnant woman, we're not talking about infringing on your rights. We're talking about infringing on the rights of the person of the person that happens to be residing inside.
Okay. Like I said, either way, like to me, how I look at it, they ain't gonna stop nothing. I mean, they didn't take it away though. That's the thing. Like the states, they can go to another state and get it.
Right.
So I just think both sides are just over exaggerating. Like
I think you're totally right. And another thing that people are totally overlooking is that most of the abortions now are being acquired via pill. So it's like 51% of the abortions are done by, you get something mailed to you and you take it, right? That's how the abortions are happening now. And that's not going to slow down. That might actually intensify, right? Now, I do think that this eventually will have an impact on the population, because I think there's too much reckless behavior and has been too much reckless behavior for too long. And if you look at the numbers with respect to abortions prior to Roe v. Wade, the dominant portion, percentage-wise even, was white women that were getting abortions. After Roe v. Wade, that switched to a higher percentage of black women. And part of the reason for that is the sort of targeting, putting these sort of clinics in the black community. Part of it had to do with the fact that black folks tend to be law abiding. And so what happened was, by legitimizing abortion on the national level, it gave less people issues with abortion. Now it's just become part of the culture, where it's almost difficult to find, I'm sorry to say this, it's almost difficult to find a woman that hasn't had an abortion.
Right. That's true.
And that's really sad, but that's because it has become legitimized because of the federal law. It always was that in states and municipalities or whatever, they could make their own laws with respect to abortion rights. All this did was just take away the blanketed, you can't have any restrictions kind of thing. So these guys were trying to argue. I mean, you have places now trying to argue for abortion after, up to 5 days after the baby's born, and that's no lie. That's true. So yeah, it's ridiculous.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're talking about Supreme Court, and feel free to go ahead and hit that super chat button, okay? Super sticker, $1.99, $5, $10. Ask a question. What do you think about this? Now, we got Mr. K in the building, okay? Did you have a quick question or comment on the topic here? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've got a couple questions, and comment is, what is the underlying factor for them to have voted towards this direction? I don't think it's to do with justice. I think it's to do with population, and obviously making sure that there's enough people to pay off the social security for the next population that's growing. That's my initial analysis into it. It seems it just came out of nowhere, seemingly, and it just happened to have gone through in the highest court.
Okay,
Justice
so stop there and let's hold that for a second, because this is the second time it's come up. Kosher Clinician brought it up as your first kind of volley, basically saying, hey, that this is about these pragmatic issues here. Okay, and I wanna say something about it, but then let's put another layer on the table here. And the other layer I'm trying to put on the table is this going to be quite mobilizing, let's say, for the left or for the Democrat Party? Is this a good, shall we say, marketing strategy, or does it have a lot of juice in it? Can a lot of political capital be gained, right, from this decision, right? Can they go back now and raise funds, agitate people, get the vote out, those kinds of things, right? With regards to the Roe v. Wade decision, it's one of those things where structurally, and I'm speaking directly to you now, Dr. K, structurally, it was just such that it could not stand on its own weight. Like, it was just waiting to disappear, to fall, because structurally it was not a good argument.
Super weak.
Very, very, very weak, but it was as a result of political agitations of the time, which were emotional and all that kind of stuff. And we get it. We get how those things can happen even in the court. And so that's what it was. And then over time, the stupidity of it has been kind of clear. But over that time, we've had time for, shall we say, all kinds of contraception, and to increase people to figure out their ways around what to do and what not to do with regards to giving birth or not. That I think it can be conveniently removed without really having that population, shall we say, effect that you're saying. But that's kind of my general pushback on it. Now, starting with you, Dr. K, and then Game Changer, then Kosher Clinician. Do you think that the much political hay can be made out of this? Do you think that this is a great, shall we say, political football? Now that it's been kicked back to the States, the left can make a whole lot of good stuff happen with this. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry with Dr. K, and then Game Changer, and then so we'll go counterclockwise that way.
Yeah, I think obviously they will play this into a political back and forth sort of situation that will milk it significantly. However, I don't think it's going to be the tide that they're going to need if they want to win an election or something. I think it's going to be one of those red herrings that just doesn't quite have enough of a critical mass. Because if I look at this realistically, majority of people do actually think this thing is wrong. So when it just comes from pure population numbers and voting, I don't think it's going to help them.
Okay. So, Game Changer, what do you think? Do you think the left can get a lot of campus rallies, dollars pouring, votes coming out, and all kinds of stuff out of this, or no?
Well, once again, this is a decision made by, the one branch that don't really have to answer to the general population that way, once you become a Supreme Court justice. So at this point, they might do that. And I don't even know if they're the majority. I do know that they're the loudest on it, but it really doesn't matter. They can't vote out the Supreme Court, so they can do all they want. And I do agree with Mr. K, where it did come out of nowhere. Typically, the Supreme Court is reactive, and they react to cases that that reaches the Supreme Court. But that wasn't the case here. They just overturned a previous scenario in favor of what they believe. So this is a little bit, it's not unprecedented, but it is new, and it is a little strange. And I do believe that population control is a factor in it. Now, as far as the politics, there was a second part to your question. As far as the politics aspect of it goes, I don't think people in the executive branch, care as much as they would like to believe. Or as much as the people who voted them in would like to believe. I think that they're almost neutral on it. And in fact, the left might be, in support of it, but they're always going to come out and behave as if they are against the Supreme Court decision, and, but there's nothing they can do about it. And that being stated, they just throw their hands up in the air and say, continue to vote for me, because even though I won't change this decision, I feel your feelings. And vote for me in the next election. I kind of see that going on with the Biden administration and those who live in subsequent blue states.
Exactly, Game Changer. So, Coach Clinician, with regards to how Game Changer just ended, because it's not a question of whether they can do something about it. It's a question of whether I can use this now, because one could argue that the right has been using Roe v. Wade for a while to be like, come to my rallies. Okay, give me the money, do this, do whatever it be, as a tool of political organization and galvanization, if you will. So one could argue the right has lost that, and perhaps the ball is now on the left side to go make a whole bunch of noise. But one could still say, just like Dr. K said, that it may not have a lot of steam, this particular case. But what do you have to say about the case that can be made on the other side now, the mobilization of the left as a result of the decision by the court?
So are you saying succinctly, is this going to give the right more leverage in voting, or are you asking, will it make the rights, the left's argument more viable about the atrocities?
What can the left is going to gin up all kinds of stories about stuff, right, that you might be able to imagine. So give us that imagination, if you will. Do you think it'll be effective in terms of what they can make out of it? The left, that is.
Well, I think the left will continue to do more of what they always do. They always become, use Black people experiences as the steps to their delusions and also to their pathologies. Most men in general are very conservative. Even we might do things outside of the normal conservatism and traditionalism. Black men and all men, white men as well, we tend to be more traditional because we realize and understand that normally we hold the brunt of the struggles, and there's a greater level of accountability associated with us. But if whether or not it would give the left more viability to beat the drum, it's hard to say, because there was a liberal that called Clarence Thomas the N-word. I don't know if you guys heard about that, but there was a liberal that was saying, how can you do this and you don't even know that you're an N-word. So I would say to the delusional, it'll give the delusional more of a talking point, but to those men that are prudent and those women that are traditional, I think it's going to be a stalemate, more or less. I don't see the left gaining any leverage in this situation because I think people are beginning to wake up, and then there's a silent majority that believe in a lot of the things that the Supreme Court did, but they just didn't have the wherewithal to say it. So I don't think it's going to necessarily give the left any more viability.
Excellent. And shout out to D-Rob Dan. Thank you very much for the $4.99, $5 super chat. Says salute to the panel. Shout out Ike. Yes. Thank you very much. And by the way, Dr. Thunder, how's the camera blur? Is it gone?
Yeah, it's better. It's better. It's a little dark though. I mean, I don't know if you can brighten it up, but it's good.
Excellent. And Gail, we got another super chat in the building from Gail. Okay, when it shows up on StreamYard, I'll go ahead and share it. Right.
He says, salute to Ike and the panel. Also, Spiritual Hulk. Spiritual Hulk says, even the Roe v. Wade was overturned to an extent. Notice rights have not returned to men, but government continues to be head of household.
Yeah, and these are good points with regards to perhaps the down the line changing of behaviors, which will lead to perhaps demographic changes, which some people are saying. And I have a pushback on the demographic changes, which I'm also saying that perhaps I have a pushback on the change of behavior, because things such as the government being the head of the household and all that kind of stuff doesn't change still, if you will, right? And we haven't had a crazy disaster. But before I go to you, Dr. Thunder, I want to ask Ramil here about this. What can now be done? Does this give the left a lot of energy to talk about all the disasters and the suffering and the Black women and all that kind of stuff? You know, all the and now they could just do this in perpetuity. And some people have even said that the grape accusations may go up because certain states are going to have the laws such that there will be exemptions for the grape juice and all that kind of stuff. So what can you think of with regards to the pushback from the other side and how it may look, Ramil?
I do think those grape accusations are going to go up. That's a fact. But aside from that, I just, like I said, I just don't see any. If somebody wants to get an abortion, they can just go to the next state over. JP Morgan, Disney, all these corporations, they're funding it now. They're going to be funding their travel and hotel stay to go to a blue state to make it happen. I just think people are just crying for nothing. That's how I look at it. I mean, humans are gonna do what they want to do. If somebody wants to get an abortion, they're gonna get it. And they're gonna find a way. Where there's a will, there's a way. So that's why I'm at with it. I think, and the Democrats gonna keep doing what they always been doing. They always been crying. I mean, they've been doing this already. Somebody said it's a silent majority out here who doesn't care about any of this. The people who are not protesting, the people who are not out here crying on social media. There's a big silent majority out there. Yep. They're just not on social media crying all day. So you can't forget about them.
100%. Shout out to the kosher clinician. Thank you, sir, for the super chat. And you say it's for the intellect and the panel. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. So, Dr. Thunder, you get a chance to kind of react to, what we've been talking about on the table, which is the pushback, how much political capital can be made of this from the other side.
Yeah. First, I want to say something about what Kaizo was saying. And that is, I think that altruistically, we would like to think that people are doing things for the right reasons. But I do believe that this whole population problem is, I think, heart and soul of why this thing got moved the direction that it did. I do think that if it hadn't been for, and I'm just going to say, I wasn't really a fan of Trump. I liked a lot of his policies, but I wasn't really a fan of Trump. I didn't vote for him either time. However, you can't argue if he had not put those 3 Supreme Court justices on the court, then I think these 3 cases that we're talking about, and again, I think that the one of the cases that might end up being the most important of the 3, this schools of choice, the ability to have the money that you're spending already follow your kid to whatever private institution that you want them to go to, including religious schools, because they were always playing this, separation of church and state yin yang. And if people understand the history of this, the way that clause has been used in popular usage is exactly the opposite of what it was actually intended for, right? And the quote is actually massively out of context. The quote was, how could we govern with a separation of church and state? That was the context of it. It wasn't we need to try to separate, church and state with respect to people and their religious beliefs, their practices, X, Y, and Z. What they wanted is to prevent the government from dictating to the populace which religion they should have, right? Not to infringe the rights of religious groups, to also have fair and reasonable representation with the government, right? And so now what's happening, look, my son is in private school. He goes to a Catholic school, okay? So I pay my property taxes, I pay my school tax for the area that I'm in, but then also I'm paying tuition for him to go to school at the school that I want him to go to. And there's no way that I would chance sending him to public school with the goofy stuff that's going on that disproportionately disenfranchises Black boys. There is no way that I'm going to do that. Okay, the school that he's in now, they're on him. They're making sure that he's doing all the stuff that he needs to do, and my wife is on him. So, a lot of this gender confusion stuff, ideology that they're pressing in these schools now. There's no way that I want my son anywhere near that, and I should be able to send my kid to a school that does not participate in that. I should be able to send my kid right without having to pay double. Right now, I'm paying double. I pay my taxes. I pay my, the school tax, and then I'm also paying tuition. And so this is huge. All of the complaining that Black folks do about inadequate schools in the inner city X, Y, and Z. Once this reaches the logical conclusion, once everything is worked out based on this precedent, this could totally change the dynamic. This is, talk about being a game changer. This will be a real game changer. This will really be, huge. I did want to say one last thing, and that is, I've heard a lot of fear that somehow other rights, quote unquote, are going to be rolled back. Before you know it, they're going to put, Black folks are going to be slaves again, and all of this kind of stuff. Well, the thing is that sometimes it takes a long time for the right ruling to come down. If you look at Plessy versus Ferguson, Plessy versus Ferguson, separate but equal. That's where we get that idea from. Separate but equal. It took 58 years for that decision to be reversed with Brown versus Board of Education. 58 years. And that's a ruling that almost nobody disputes or argues with, right? I think it took 50 years, almost 50 years, 49 years, for this ruling, this Roe v. Wade ruling to be changed. That's not a signal that somehow rights are being rolled back. Actually, all of the bogus arguments that they used against Black people, as far as not being a complete person, being 3/5 of a human and all that kind of stuff, all of the arguments that they used to make them feel okay about enslaving people, many of those arguments are the arguments that they use when they're talking about, these pro-abortion positions. So I think it's a win all the way around. And I'm always going to be armed, by the way. So, you might not want to mess with me. So anyhow.
All right. Let's see where the super chats are going. We've got a couple in the building. One talking about unity here. Thank you. Just call me Brian. Okay. Talking about it's going to be chaotic and it's going to lead to division, which is possibly true, but it's one of those things where it should not have been up there to begin with, right? Now, I already stated my bias with regards to the courts, but it was something that that should never have gotten there, and that the court should have rejected from the beginning and let it sort itself out amongst the states in the various legislatures as it should have the whole time. So whatever chaos comes out of this, I think we can manage. In other words, there's a bigger cause of lack of communication and chaos that's going to continue for a while, I think, right? Yeah. Because of partly because of social media, and then there are other things. In other words, this where you have woke is stand in one culture and have MAGA in the other end, to use certain kinds of extremes. I think that those people can't communicate and will not be communicating for the next 100 years. Like, I think people's brains are broken in terms of the ability to even agree on reality. And that these little cases and things like this is not going to be the reason why. It's not the reason why that is happening. But another super sticker or something like that. Am I correct there, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, facts for gentlemen. $10 super chat. Great discussion.
All right.
Fire and 100.
And yes, what you're talking about, Dr. Thunder, which basically, the saying that schools, you cannot exclude religious schools if you're going to be funding private schools, blah blah blah. You can't, even if the religious schools have religion as part of the forefront of their, So I think that's a good one for people to look into, and it generally makes sense, right? the more choice you can give the people with regards to where their dollars go, what it funds, and then how they benefit from it, the better, generally speaking. Okay, let's
Well,
go.
anything to the contrary of that is just promoting the state religion.
Exactly.
You know,
Which is basically saying fund Wokistan and wokeism and whatever else it is that the state has sanctioned, and you have no choice. That's where all the money should go. Good point. Now, I want to continue on this line here, starting with Dr. K. This line about slippery slopes and political polarization. Okay, Dr. Thunder said it, and then Just Call Me Brian wrote about it, right? Saying, look, we see a lot of fragmentation in the society. You can talk about it in the West, okay? Now, it's slightly bigger than any of these issues, okay? But it's coming up as these issues come up. Is this going to lead to more political polarization, less ability to communicate? Dr. K, and then Game Changer.
Yeah, that's actually interesting. Ever since the news dropped of the leak, I didn't actually see enough liberals commenting on it. I think they're sleeping on it, and they're waiting for their intellectual overloads, to actually give them the talking points. Because I have not actually seen any like free thought, sort of analytical criticism of this whole situation. They've been largely quiet. So I think what will happen is it really does depend on their leaders, the leadership of the liberal elite colleges that are going to come up with some kind of course, uses some kind of critique in that, and then that's then going to trickle down into culture. And then, yes, I do think it will participate itself in the culture with a lot of, obviously, polarization. However, like I said earlier before, I don't really think it's going to be something that's going to reach critical mass, because I think the argument that they've proposed here in this ruling is actually very logically sound. They're not saying we're overturning any laws created by any individual states or governorships. They're just overturning the federal aspect of things, which, if you start arguing against that, you're already on the losing side when it comes to intellectual honesty. So, yeah, I think they'll try, but I don't think it's going to catch. For some reason, I think this is one of those things where you're trying to light up a barbecue stand with a massive wood bark and an old school fire making technique using wet rocks.
Freaking guy. Now, Game Changer. Okay, more political polarization going to come out of this. And you may comment on the general political polarization, which I don't think has anything to do with any particular issue, by the way. It's not the reason people can't communicate is not because of any issues are all getting fired up. No. But anyways, is this going to lead to more or less political polarization, Game Changer?
Yeah, well, it already has. If you're asking, is it going to die down by the time by the next election cycle? Yes.
Civil war, chopping up people in the street, Hutus, Tutsis. What's coming up next?
Oh, no. I think that it'll just be more marches and more rallies and stuff like that, because people like that really just want something to do. And they actually, because I've been to one, and what I noticed is that a lot of those people look at certain events like that as social events, a gathering just to say that they got out and did something that day. And yes, we're going to see more of that. But any major radical movements, I don't see that happening, because it's like Ramil said, they could just go to another state. It's not that big a deal. Once again, the people who are worried about it are the people who are just concerned that their freedom has been limited. In any way, shape, or form, there's going to be a backlash whenever at one point you could do something and now you can't. It's like changing a kid's bedtime from 8:30 to 8:25. There's going to be a backlash, even though they get sleepy at 8 anyway. It's just immature and something that they want to do in order to affect change, but they're not going to affect change in this particular way.
Kosher clinician, what's the reason for a lot of the discord we're seeing, this lack of this inability to communicate that we're seeing? You kind of created a divide initially between, shall we say, responsible people and then the irresponsible people. Okay, that's one divide, but that's not really what's where we have where you would consider otherwise responsible people, such as university presidents, for example, on the side of saying certain kinds of ridiculous things or certain kinds of programmatic dogma, such as reproductive justice and racial justice are interlinked, and that's the reason why. And we have to stand up against this, shall we say, intrusion on reproductive justice and social justice and racial justice too, right? So in other words, we have people whom you might otherwise think are sane and responsible human beings saying these types of things, and it's not making any sense to the other people on the other side, right? So what is going on here, Kosher Clinician? It's an old topic, right? But what are your thoughts with regards to the lack of communication these days?
Well, I don't think it's a lack of communication. I think what it is succinctly is cognitive dissonance. Part of an acronym that I created is that people that suffer from cognitive dissonance, often they deny the evidence when you present it to them. They become enraged when you give them that evidence. They argue through ad hominem attacks where they attack the messenger instead of the message, and they fight or flee. And what you're seeing now manifest in modern day times is a true sense of cognitive dissonance. Many times the people have spoken. Many traditional men spoke. Many conservative women have spoken. But many on the left, especially the radical left, they tend to have or suffer from cognitive dissonance because they don't care about what others think. They impose or push their worldview onto the masses. And as I said earlier, there is a silent majority that don't believe in the negative malfeasance that you see now. But because of social conditioning and the fear of retribution, many people just suck it up and don't say anything. So I don't think it's a lack of communication. I think it's this cognitive dissonance manifesting in this purest form.
All right. I tend to agree with you. I don't think it's about communication. I don't think it's about any particular issues. And some particular person, and I want you to react to this, Ramil, and then Dr. Thunder. Somebody said that social media is a big reason why this is happening. That we've seen this whole divide happen between the, let's say, young and old, or radical versus more conservative, ever since the 60s. But that because of social media, the professors are now actually afraid of the students, that the students can actually do something, mobilize, something can happen in this crazy social media land, which the professor has no idea about and the students control, and all of a sudden it could ruin their life or whatever it may be. That because of this social media phenomenon, we see a lot of things happening with girls. Let's say, for example, it's the spike in self-reported transformerisms, right, amongst females rising because of this social media phenomenon as well. In other words, a lot of stuff is being attributed with regards to this dysfunction is being attributed to social media. But Ramil, what do you think? Is it a social media thing, really what's going on here, how crazy people are? And it's not just that people disagree, but you know what I mean, where people are just speaking two different languages, and it's like, what's going on here?
Yeah, definitely social media. That's how, all these people who probably shouldn't be talking to each other are talking to each other is social media. So that's what I'm saying. Like, a lot of this stuff, the people who really got nothing going on, they the ones who are on social media crying a lot. So it's like, it's just two different worlds. Like I said, it's a silent majority out there who has the money, has their life mostly retired and all that. They're not on social media. So, I mean, it's like a false reality sometimes. That's why you gotta take a break.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, Dr. Thunder.
Sure. DJ NAF, $20. I think it may be to do something or feel like they are a part of something. It seems like most people want to be associated with some type of group, movement, and or identity if they aren't a part of a particular class.
Yeah. So the most people are actually designed this way, and there's nothing that you can do to change that. Most people are not designed like Ramil. Most people have a desire for bonding of some kind, right? They have a desire for connection. Okay, they want to feel like part of something, and that's why, by the way, some of these things are affect the girls more, because girls are more so that way, right? And also they get judged more that way, by the way. In other words, putting out a picture out there, whether it gets likes or not, that's not the center of his world, but that is the center of the girl's world. Okay, plus you're more social, so we can really devastate them in that way. So now you have people where, you know, when it comes to the things you're not supposed to say, let's say, for example, you say that maybe Me Too went too far, or Me Too has not been completely thought through because we've only had a little bit of time to deal with men and women working with each other, right? And we don't know all the answers yet. And ask questions such as, well, should women be wearing makeup in the workplace? Like those kinds of things that Jordan Peterson will do, that now people don't even go into thinking about it. It's just a question of, what group am I in and what are we supposed to do? I'm going to hear about this on social media. What little cave am I supposed to be part of? And then no one ever says anything. And because of the postmodern language that we have, people can talk completely in silos, where they're actively playing a language game, which they all know is BS. But because they can leave their house and still go put gasoline in their car and it still works and all that kind of stuff, then it's fine. Then you don't have to you don't have to respect logic in order for you to actually function in the world, right? Which is another big aspect. You don't have to respect any of the logic of the way of anything works, because you have a tribe of people that will reinforce whatever BS you happen to be spewing out. But anyways, Dr. Thunder, your reactions with regards to more or less political polarization resulting from this, and what is the result, or what is the contribution of social media with regards to political polarization?
Yeah, I think social media definitely has an impact on what's going on. Like Ramil said, there's a lot of folks that are in communication that probably shouldn't be. And in any other circumstance, they never would be. Right. So then it's kind of like, you stay to yourself, I'll stay to myself. And as long as you're not infringing on my rights, hey, no big deal. But see, one of the issues with the whole woke religion is that its adherents are zealous. They are, and they won't take a reasonable response to their views. They won't take that. You must bow. You must reverence their views, no matter how ridiculous they are, right? And you take platforms like Facebook, which are obvious echo chambers for a particular perspective, and people actually patting themselves on the back as if they're being brave because they're saying some of the groupthink, common groupthink stuff on Facebook.
Let me converse with you 1 second there, Dr. Thunder, because I want to highlight something that you just pointed out, which is that, let's say we just call it relativism, right? That relativism is out there telling you to chill and relax, live and let live, right? Saying, hey, you don't know what's right. How do you know that, it's okay not to burn the widow of the husband, after his death, whatever it may be. Cultural relativism, moral relativism of all kinds would tend from the outside to, people would think, okay, this is going to reduce the temperature of zealotry, right? It's going to reduce the moral kind of, it's going to get rid of puritanical behavior of all kinds, right? People are going to become more chill, come see, come saw, live and let live, right? That's what you would think, okay? But human nature doesn't actually work that way. You see, it turns out that if we all, everyone listening, okay, if we all actually rather are under one strict moral code, we all tend to be less hypocritical and more chill. It'll be fewer people that are like the zealots, holy roller, I can't be moved, I'm a fundamentalist. It's going to be a fewer group of people. But when you disaggregate that stuff, when anyone now can go form up their own little, as somebody said, morality is a ghost town, that anyone can show up now and declare themselves sheriff. Where you have these now different, because you say relativism, everybody go figure it out. You're going to have people that have things such as, a commitment to some crazy ideals, more so than before when you thought about, if it was some kind of more uniform religious, for example, system, which you would think would be more puritanical. But no, actually, when you tell people to be free, they actually become more pure, crazy. They become more tyrants when you think you're actually making them free. I just wanted to point that out. Well, go ahead, Dr. Thunder.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that the social media thing is problematic. Do I think that somehow things are going to become worse, more polarized, maybe as a result of that, or because the left didn't get their way, as it were. I do think that we're probably in for a tumultuous, probably couple months, where there's probably going to be some incendiary items hurled, and some crude slogans spouted, and in unison. But other than that, I think that it's a huge win. Quite frankly, so I'm a Christian. Everyone knows that. I'm pro-life, right? And I'm whole life, right? So I don't think that just getting people here is enough. I think we should do things to we should treat each other better. We should respect each other more, and we should support each other more. That's what I think. Okay. But all of that starts when you can't protect yourself. It all starts when you cannot protect yourself. And that obviously is right after conception, any time between that and actually probably several years old, when you really can't protect yourself. That's when people need the most protection. And the right for me to swing my arm ends at your nose. Okay? And so do anything you want to do, wildly flail about, as long as you're not infringing on my rights, as long as you're not touching me. And all of these arguments about a woman's body and, men don't have any business saying anything. And, last time I checked, 50% of the genetic material comes from a man.
Right.
And not only does 50% of the genetic material come from a man, we know that at the moment of conception, new DNA is created. Unique DNA that is not identical with the female or with the male. It is unique, never existed before DNA. That's what the science says. Now, to all of the folks that are like, oh yeah, we're into science, and these knuckle dragging, conservatives, they're not about science. Explain to me how that is not true. And then here's the last thing I'll say. All of this, this is my body, my choice. Well, here's my question. Here's my question to maybe a pregnant woman that is considering an abortion and is listening to this whole my body, my choice business. How many fingers do you have? And how many toes do you have? Unless you say 20 fingers and 20 toes, I'm not talking about you.
That's the 1% grape situation logic.
Well, and let's talk about that. Let's talk about that real quick. Okay, so 2% of these abortions are required because of incest or rape. 2%. That means 98% are elective. They're basically birth control. All right. Now, it's totally disingenuous to use an argument. Hey, but what about rape and incest? See, the thing is they don't respect life already. So it's totally a bogus argument, right? Because if you respect life, then you wouldn't punish another innocent person because something happened to you, right? Somebody slugs me, and so I go across the street and slug some random person across the street, right? That's what that argumentation amounts to. They shouldn't be, they shouldn't have to, have this big adopt, give up the kid for adoption. Okay, it's a horrible scenario. I think rapists actually should be put to death. So I'm not easy on rapists. And diddling with kids is the same deal. You should be put to death. So don't get it twisted. But it is not appropriate to kill someone because something happened to you. To murder someone else, an innocent bystander, because something happened to you. It doesn't make any sense. All those arguments are total garbage. They're total garbage arguments. And if you're a Christian, because there's these Christian groups and they're claimed to be pro-choice Christian groups and stuff, really? How can you justify that position? So I'm sorry.
Let's take it to guns and black people, kosher clinician, okay? Because one of the rulings of the Supreme Court recently has to do with an affirming of upheld the right for gun owners to carry loaded weapons in public. Basically, that's against certain restrictions that New York and California would have. Now, when I look at the California side, it says that they still, as long as you can pass this test or whatever, they still got to take the test and the background check, but they can't arbitrarily, shall we say, block you. Okay. Now, a lot of Americans bought guns after the pandemic. Okay, 2020 and 2021, about, I believe, 13.9 million Americans, which is a lot. Claim to be first-time gun owners. Now, kosher clinician, though, when this thing comes down to the states and now these black people are carrying guns around, aren't we gonna then see the politics of the fact that white people are very scared of black people with guns, and we're gonna start seeing certain state laws change, perhaps? Do you care to comment on the whole, how would whites react to more blacks carrying guns if this is the direction that we're going towards, given the Supreme Court rulings, starting with kosher clinician and then game changer?
Well, Tavis Smiley said it better than me. He said that when white America get the cold, then black America get the flu. And, we always have selective outrage when it comes down to people of African descent, or what I call Americans of the African diaspora. We always have selective outrage. So I won't be surprised if they be more draconian when it comes down to black people getting guns, and more or less try to, minimize or cause more or less of a controlling mechanism in place to perpetuate the notion that we're dangerous and very fearful. And Ike and the panel, one of the things I don't quite understand, Margaret Sanger, she was a violent racist. Joe Biden had a strong historical racist past. And we tend to look over that. They call black men super predators. We look past it, we minimize it. So it's always a selective outrage. They pick and choose when they want to be outrageous. And then, like you were saying, with blacks getting guns now, or people of ADOS descent getting guns, I could see certain liberals more or less perpetuating their fear notion, because many times, many of those so-called liberals are more dangerous because, at least with the so-called conservatives or the racists with the hood on, you know what you're dealing with. But a lot of these liberals, they're the worst because you don't know what you're dealing with. And many times they're worse and they say more negative things behind the scenes. So I can see a situation where ADOS descents are getting more guns, that they were trying to perpetuate a fear narrative.
Very well put there. A game changer. Okay. What do you think? It was actually, after all, the Black Panthers that were carrying rifles around, following the police. Okay, keeping an eye on the police. And that got shut down real quick. I'm sure you know the history of that. Now we're in an area where, there are victories for gun owners and gun ownership is going up. Are we going to see the whole white man rearing his scared head again?
No, I don't see that coming again. The Black Panther movement really was, it was reactionary, and the people were organized and united under one particular cause, and that was the true oppression of the time and place. So that doesn't really exist anymore. So there isn't a rallying cry for that, and the ability for us to organize otherwise just isn't there. So I don't see that happening. See, Black people have owned guns for quite some time. The thing about the Black Panther movement is that they did it as a organization, and they were legally educated and intelligent. That really, but most importantly, it wasn't really that the Black Panther movement was a military threat to white America, because they weren't. When you look at it, I mean, at the end of the day, a shotgun can only do so much to a tank. So it wasn't really that really hyped up the fear of the Black Panther movement. It was more that it was the ideal that their views can go viral and toxic. And since at the time the nation was in a Cold War, and the Black Panther movement and its leaders were essentially communists, and people tend to follow Black culture, they were afraid of that more than anything. And then the negative propaganda about the movement came. And then
but now that shall we say, the Black Lives Matter movement is openly Marxist, but it has been properly digested by the corporate structure, by the media structure, by the governmental structure, that they've become more or less just harmless propaganda machines, then it's fine. Anyways, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I don't really see them as one and the same, the Black Panther movement and the Black Lives Matter movement, because once again, Ramil said it best, and DJ Nav said it best, and I said it best, and that is they're just a bunch of people that are looking for something to do. They're not united in a single cause. It's just that once something happens, everybody with their own agenda come at the same time in order to spread their narrative. So much unlike the Black Panther movement, who was united in a single cause.
Mm-hmm. So Ramil, you think Black men should own more guns, be more active with regards to their right to carry firearms? And what do you think with regards to the white lash reaction that may come back?
Yeah, if you can legally do it, I say yeah. But I agree with Game Changer. Black people been had guns in this country. I mean, that's not. For a long time. So I mean, that's nothing new. But once again, the Supreme Court is one of the greatest of all times, because some states are trying to make it harder for law-abiding citizens to get armed. But luckily, they're putting a stop to that. And I mean, I can only imagine what kind of world we'll be in if it was a liberal court right now.
Shall we say Dr. Thunder, what are your thoughts with regards to the Black gun ownership deal?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a gun owner for, most of my life now. My dad owned guns. I grew up in the country. We had guns throughout the house that were not locked up. We had respect for guns because we were taught the business end, how to clean the gun, how to respect the gun, how to shoot the gun. And there was never any, in my community, it was no accidental shootings or any of that kind of stuff, because the people that were within that proximity, they respected guns, and they didn't have this sort of irrational fear because of those three letters, GUN, but rather they understood that it was a tool, and they understood how to respect it, So yeah, there's always been Black folks that had guns, and matter of fact, it was of critical importance that we owned guns, especially just after slavery. Especially the 100 years, we'll say, after slavery, when the Klan, which of course was a liberal organization, the Klan came out of the Democratic Party, that Klan, and folks like to forget that, but they were going burning crosses in people's yards and stuff, and going in their house and pulling out their, the dude's wife, and he can't do nothing, and all of that kind of stuff, and that whole the Me Too stuff. Me Too is nothing but lynching revived. That's all that is. It just takes a white woman to point at you and say, "Hey, that Negro right there, that's the one that did it." That's all it takes, and that's all this Me Too was. Me Too was just a revival of a time when black men were totally defenseless. We could not, and we couldn't do anything. All it took is a crazy allegation. So we've been armed for a long time. I think it's very important that right for people to be able to defend themselves. I'll tell you what I think needs to go away. And I was looking at a clip from Donald Trump, and again, like I said, I haven't been really a fan of Donald Trump, but you have to acknowledge when he's saying stuff that's true. He was talking about single point of entry. If these schools all had single point of entry, metal detectors, armed guards, and a trained, minority of trained teachers, the people that volunteered to do it, and then we need to do away with this gun-free zone crap. I mean, it's a freaking soft target. I mean, it just makes it so easy to go in there and create all kind of mayhem. And people that argue against that, I don't understand. It's like there's this irrational fear of guns. It's an irrational fear of guns. And I hear people cite these statistics that, oh yeah, if you have a gun, then you're more likely to get, somebody that breaks in your house, they're more likely to shoot you, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't know. I'm just, all that stuff is really, it's really silly. I mean, all you have to do is just open a history book to know how important it is for people to be able to defend themselves. I mean, especially black folks. Let's go.
All right. To close this out, I'm gonna give us a magic wand here, starting with Ramil, and also you can give your final thoughts about this whole thing, any of the decisions that the Supreme Court has given, or anything else you would like to add. But with regards to you as a man in the 22nd, or is it during the 21st century, I believe that's where we are, right? Okay. And as a black man in the United States, in whichever particular identity box you want to put yourself, and then look out and say, well, how am I being treated, or how is the landscape of the law, right? Would you change anything in the American Constitution? Would you change anything in any of the laws out there, states, constitutions, whatever it may be? So how do you feel right now in the United States as a black man? Would you change anything with a magic wand? Starting with Ramil, and then Game Changer, and then Dr. Thunder, along with any final thoughts you may have.
That's a deep question to answer on the spot. So I don't. I had to get some days to think about that, because really, this is kind of like the best situation for humanity so far, as far as civilization wise, as far as innovation and quality of life. America is, so who knows? But now as long as I can pump and dump and make money, I'm cool. So
yeah. If you think of anything else, as other people answer, you can hop in. Game Changer, would you change anything? And what do you think the state of the situation is? And by the way, there was something that I think someone mentioned that, the closer and closer you get towards the target, by the way, the more you kind of see the imperfections, right? Which is an interesting way of putting it. But Game Changer, what are your thoughts?
Off the fly, I'm with Ramil. It is that is a big question to ask on the fly. But if I had to make a change to the Constitution, I would probably augment the freedom of press and to assure that it's not privately motivated. I do think that society is highly influenced by others, which means that people with money to influence the press and the freedom to do so can manipulate the population in a very negative way. So we're giving those with money that extreme power. So I think that they weren't able to foresee that ability because the television and the internet and things like that wasn't invented the thing. They just had the print and press. So I would probably augment that particular aspect of it.
I see. Yeah, freedom of the press. Freedom of the press. Which amendment is that one? So, Dr. Thunder, what would you change? How do you think the United States is doing so far with regards to its constitution and equality under the law and all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's America is the United States of America. It's the this freedom experiment, as it were, has been clearly and by far the most successful of its kind. And maybe you could argue that there hasn't been an experiment that of this kind, but it's been totally. I would say it's been totally successful. If you compare it to, the alternatives. Okay, so I'll first say that. Now, I will say that there were some unfortunate things in the beginning of this country with the, owning slaves, the ability to own slaves. I think that's something that we could take a look at and say, hey, I think there's been steps taken to try to rectify. I still think that reparations, I think it's owed. I don't know that it'll ever happen, but I think it's owed. Even if we just did if the country just did what it promised to do, 40 acres and a mule, initially, I think we'd be in a different sort of scenario. I do believe that Roe v. Wade has done irreparable damage, especially to the Black community, disproportionately to the Black community. You're talking about 20 million abortions. There's been, I think, something like 63 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. 20 million, like 1/3, have been Black babies. That's devastating from a number of perspectives. One of the perspectives it's devastating is with respect to our population. We have recently been eclipsed by Hispanics. Okay, so we're about, I think we're somewhere about 40 million of us here. We'd be closer to 100 million or more had it not been for all of these abortions. And even if you cut the abortions in half and say, okay, well, people are still going to do stuff, even if it's, X, Y, and Z. Now, I think that there's good argumentation to suggest that Black folks would not have embraced abortion to the extent that we have, because prior to Roe v. Wade, it was such a small percentage of Black folks were getting abortions. Okay. So, I mean, if we could maintain that up until now, you're talking about 100 million of us or more. And so, yeah, it's, I think we've weakened ourselves politically. And I think that is with respect to, having an out and promoting reckless, irresponsible behavior and basically using abortion as birth control, all of that kind of stuff. I think that could have been different. I'd also argue the same thing for this interpretation of this separation of church and state, and the way that the misinterpretation of what that was intended to mean has, the Department of Education. I mean, we don't need we don't need a Department of Education. We just need to be able to send our kids to whatever schools we want to send them to. Matter of fact, don't even take the tax out. Just put the responsibility on John Q. Taxpayer to send their own kids to school.
All right, going all crazy with this libertarian crazy talk there, sir. I'm just
Yeah, I mean, so I would argue some of those things, but the American experiment has been wonderful. It's been beautiful, and I know that there's a lot of folks that are really concerned about additional rights, quote unquote, being eviscerated or taken back, stuff being rolled back. As Joe Biden said, they're gonna put you back in chains. I know I know that people are fearful of that, but I think as time goes on, I think we'll calm down, and hopefully folks can start to embrace this as not the sort of massive inconvenience they think it is. And if you're pro-life, you're celebrating, because look, God bless Texas. Texas is putting laws in place to make any abortion illegal. God bless Texas. Let's go.
Shout out to Uncle Stu, the old man on the block. Thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Says, I will support the stream. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another successful episode of Case Closed. Okay, come back next week. It'll be on Dr. Thunder's channel. But come back also here next Wednesday, Getting Ish Done, which is 9:30, right? Is that right, Dr. Thunder?
Yeah, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Ike's channel.
100%.
Ike and myself, it's always interesting, always thought-provoking, always centered around productivity.
All right. Well, thank you one more time to the panel, everyone who participated. Dr. K, Kosher Clinician, Dr. Thunder, Ramil, Game Changer. I think it was a good conversation about something that's not often spoken about with regards to the SCOTUS, Supreme Court. What are our feelings about it? We seem to like the fact that it is not doesn't get quite as dirty with the democracy as one would think, which is an interesting thing, by the way, because sometimes the best parts of a democracy are not democratic at all, right? Which shout out to Socrates and his critique of democracy and all that good stuff. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, shout out to Doug in the chat, the unspecialist, Gail for holding it down, everybody who super chatted, and we are gone. Peace.